Samir sir?
Madam has joined.
Yes.
Then,
Good evening.
Good evening, madam. Good evening.
Okay.
Good evening, madam. I am Nilesh Desai.
oh,
Good evening. Good evening, Dr. Desai, and thank you very much for this invitation.
No, we are thankful to you for accepting our invitation.
That's all. So I will be made the presenter at the time of the presentation, or am I already? Okay, I'm already the presenter. Fine. That's okay.
So if you are ready, we can start.
Whenever you tell me when to start, I leave it to you to tell me.
Okay, if we have the permission, we will start. Okay.
Yes,
we
please.
we extend a hearty warm welcome to everyone to 30th Vikram Sarabhai Memorial Lecture 2021. This is an annual activity of ISRS in which distinguished researchers and personalities are invited to enlighten us with their vast knowledge. This year we have Dr. Renu Swaroop, former Secretary, Department of Biotechnology, Government of India among us. I extend a hearty warm welcome to you, ma'am. We take an opportunity to welcome and invite Dr. Nilesh Desai ji, President ISRS and Director SAC, to chair the session, and Dr. Hitendra Padalia ji, Secretary ISRS, to co-chair the session. Now, we hand over the stage to Dr. Hitendra Padalia ji for further conduction of the session. Over to you, sir.
A very warm welcome to all the participants of this symposium in this particular 30th Vikram Sarabhai Memorial Lecture, and welcome to Madam Dr. Renu Swaroop and our EC President Nilesh Desai sir, all EC members, all other dignitaries. I welcome all of you in this particular Vikram Sarabhai Memorial Lecture. Now I invite our President ISRS, Sri Nilesh Desai sir, to welcome our distinguished speaker of this particular session, as well as welcome other participants.
Thank you, Dr. Hitendra, and thank you, the organizers of this iGeomatics Symposium, Ludhiana chapter of Indian Society of Geomatics, as well as Punjab Remote Sensing Center, and Dr. Bijendra Pataria ji and his team of organizers. And at the outset, let me welcome all the participants and the organizers of this Dr. Vikram Sarabhai Memorial Lecture here under the aegis of Indian Society of Remote Sensing. And first and foremost, let me welcome and thank Dr. Renu Swaroop Madam for agreeing to our request at the very last moment. And despite our short notice, she has been gracious enough to accept our invitation and agree to give this very important 30th Dr. Vikram Sarabhai Memorial Lecture. So thank you, Madam, once again for accepting our invitation and coming for this Vikram Sarabhai Memorial Lecture. And the topic selected by Madam, Biotechnology in India, and an accelerating journey from research to translation. It needs no introduction. Of course, Madam doesn't need any introduction. She has been a ex-secretary of Department of Biotechnology, and Dr. Hitendra will give the details about Madam, which, as I said, doesn't need any introductions. She is well known everywhere in India, and especially after this COVID-19 pandemic since last couple of years. Department of Biotechnology has been in the news everywhere in India and elsewhere as well in the world. And they have been doing great efforts to make India free from this pandemic at the earliest. And we are thankful to the efforts made by under the guidance and leadership of Dr. Renu Swaroop Madam. And as the American author, I don't know if many of you may be remembering, Dr. Olivier Markov, he has said that this COVID-19 pandemic has been the biggest event in our lifetime. And it is as if it is even bigger than 9/11. It is as if 9/11 happening everywhere in every city of this world at the same time. So you can imagine the impact and the devastation caused by this COVID-19 pandemic. It doesn't need any introduction. And the efforts made by Madam and her team in India, especially related to various biotechnology related research as well as the vaccine related exercise. We are very eager to learn this exhilarating journey from research to translation, and India has come out very well out of this pandemic, and thanks to the effort of Madam and her other team members all across the country. And this is a very apt topic for this today's lecture. And once again, we thank Madam for agreeing to our request. And of course, we had at ISRO and Indian Society of Remote Sensing has been associated with Department of Biotechnology since long. Various research activities has been assigned to us by DBT, especially related to coral leaf related mapping as well as mangrove and other things. And we have been working jointly for many such exercises, and we hope to continue these collaborative efforts in future as well. So thank you, Madam, for all our earlier collaborations, as well as once again, I welcome all the participants as well as Madam, and I now request Dr. Hitendra Patalia to formally introduce Dr. Renu Swarup, Madam. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So it is my privilege that I am introducing today Madam, because I have been seeing Madam since last maybe more than 1 decade. We have been working in the project which was on biodiversity characterization landscape level. And so for the benefit of the participants, I would like to read her brief biodata. Dr. Renu Swarup Madam is a former Secretary, Department of Biotechnology, Government of India. Having served in Department of Biotechnology for over 30 years, she was also the chairperson of Biotechnology Industry Research Assistance Council, briefly known as BIRAC, and she also held the additional charge of Secretary, Department of Science and Technology for a short period. A PhD in genetics and plant breeding, she did her postdoctoral research at the John Innes Centre, Norwich, UK. Dr. Renu Swarup has been instrumental in planning and implementation of some of major national programs. As a science manager, issues related to policy planning and implementation were a part of her assignment. She was actively engaged in the formulation of National Biotechnology Vision and Strategy in 2001, 2007, and 2015, and very lately in 2021. She was also a member of the Task Force on Women in Science constituted by the Scientific Advisory Committee to the Prime Minister. As the Secretary of Government of India, Department of Biotechnology, she led a network of 16 autonomous research institutes, 2 public sector undertaking, and a research and development network of more than 5,000 projects across more than 100 research institutes, universities, and laboratories. In the recent COVID pandemic situations, she led the COVID vaccine diagnostic and genome sequencing mission, the public sector BIRAC, for which she founding managing director, and then chairperson, has supported more than 5,000 startups and over 60 incubators. A fellow of the National Academy of Sciences, NASI India, a life member of Trust for Advancement of Agricultural Sciences, and a member of Organization for Women in Science for the Developing World. She was awarded the Biospectrum Person of the Year Award in 2012, National Entrepreneurship Award 2017, Thai Woman Enabler Award 2018, Dr. P. Seal Memorial Award 2018 by NASI, and the Tawaz Regional Office Prize on Science and Diplomacy in 2018. She has been awarded the Agriculture Research Leadership Award 2019, Srimati Chandaben Mohanbai Patel Wasik Award for Women, Scientific and Chemical Science and Technology 2020-21, Lifetime Achievement Award for Biotech Policy Maker 2021 by Golden Jubilee Women Biotech Park, and she was also recognized as Businesswoman World Women 2019 and 2020. So thank you, madam. Thank you so much. Now it's over to you, madam.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Desai, and thank you so much, Dr. Patalia, Dr. Sameer, Saran, and all those who are here. It's really a pleasure for me to be part of this very important lecture that you have, the Vikram Sarabhai Memorial Lecture. I'll share my slides and then I'll get started if it's okay with you. Are my slides visible?
Yes, madam.
Okay. So thank you very much. And as I said, it's really been a pleasure. And I have had very long associations with the Department of Space and its various activities. And definitely when I received a call, there was no way that I could say no to this very important lecture. And that too in the name of Dr. Vikram Sarabhai, a person who's been a visionary himself. And if we talk about missions today, I think whether it's a mission in biotechnology or a mission, of course, the space missions or any other mission, he is really a person who launched the whole concept of missions in our country. And it's really wonderful for me to be here to speak to you all. Thank you very much for this very kind introduction that has been given. But as you had said, this has been a year of the pandemic. And when I spoke to Dr. Sumit Karan and to Dr. Desai, they wanted me to cover the pandemic. And I thought the topic that would be able to convey this very well would be from research to translation. Because if today we are talking about vaccines and diagnostics coming out indigenously within the country, it's because we have been able to build a very strong research to translational ecosystem, which gave us the level of confidence to be able to deliver. And who better than to dedicate this to Dr. Vikram Sarabhai, who has been not just the greatest Indian visionary, but who has, as I said, given each one of us a very important learning as to how you need to look at what translation is, what products are, what technologies are, which are of application oriented for mankind, for society. And that's really what this whole talk today is about. While I will speak about the COVID vaccines towards the end of my talk, the journey will tell you as to how did we enable ourselves to be able to reach it. All of you are there from the space sector and you know exactly how space missions move. I thought this was an opportunity to let you know how the biotechnology missions move on similar tracks. And probably that is why the Department of Biotechnology and Department of Space have had such wonderful collaborations in many activities that we move on. This is again, somebody is very close to all of you. And I was looking at the topics that Sameer had sent me of the previous speakers, all related to space, but all related to one very important aspect is that to how do you look at a vision? How do you look at something that responds? And who better than Dr. Abdul Kalam, who taught us that you need to dream. You need to dream big. If you dream big, that's when visions get set up. And let me share this with you that if today biotechnology is in the forefront in the country. And as has been said, I compliment my entire team, not just within the Department of Biotechnology in the ministry, which I was heading till a short while back, but the entire team of scientists across the country, whether it was from the industry, from the academia, from the startups, from related ministries, because each one of them contributed to this whole fulfillment of a vision for an Atmanirbhar Bharat. But how did this happen? This happened because decades back, we dreamt that India can move forward in the field of biotechnology. And Dr. Abdul Kalam has always been our guiding force to say, keep dreaming, and then you have large visions as you move forward. So going to what really is biotechnology. So when I give you a journey of biotechnology, it's important for you to know what really is biotechnology. And this was coined way back in 1919 by Karol Iereke, who was a Hungarian agricultural engineer, and then he moved from the food area to becoming a minister. He looked at different technologies and said, what is biotechnology? Biotechnology is basically where you look at different tools and technologies for the biological process. But if you look back, people have been using these biological processes for years, and all of us know that. more than 10,000 years back, when you looked at agricultural communities, when you looked at how people started making bread, how they started making alcohol beverages, after all, that's all biotechnology. But when is it that we started looking at biotechnology to be able to respond to the needs of our society in terms of healthcare, in terms of agriculture, industrial processes, clean energy, environment? That's when we started using the term related to cellular technologies. And then we had the definitions that we said is basically biotechnology, which harnesses the cellular and the biomolecular processes to develop technologies that improve our lives, whether it's the health, it's the agriculture, it's the nutrition. So even though it was there 6,000 years back, in recent years, that's when it has begun. And it's nearly been about now 5 decades that we've had these cellular technologies moving ahead. So if you look at it where we started from, the biotechnology, the ancient one was, as I said, way back in 8,000 to 4,000 BC. It was related to food, shelter, domestication of animals. But then we went into the classical biotechnology, which started in 2000 BC. But more importantly, we built on this, and we built on fermentation processes. We built on medical technologies. And these fermentation processes, these medical technologies, our great understanding, in-depth understanding, is what has given us today the vaccines, the various tools and interventions that we have with which we've been able to bring out indigenous products for COVID. And that's really, it was in 1953 to 76, that was when we looked at DNA research. That's when we started doing DNA research. And today, you know that in the country, we have the world's first DNA vaccine that has been brought out, the ZyCoV-D, which is likely to roll out into the immunization program very soon, but that's the first in the world. So our knowledge of this goes way back to many, many years. And today we apply it to all living organisms, parts, products, models, to see how we could alter living or non-living material. And how can we look at it in terms of production of new knowledge, goods and services. So biotechnology is really fueling the bioeconomy of our country, but it's more of a knowledge-driven economy. And it's this knowledge that we take forward to be able to give us the end products. And that is why today, even if you look at new prosthetics that we develop in medical field, somebody would say, what is the biotechnology in that? It's a medical implant, it's a medical device. Where is the biotechnology? The biotechnology comes in connecting it to the living organism, to the cellular process, to the biological process. So looking at biology and bringing in technology, that in simple words is biotechnology. So if you trace the history of it, today I'm going to speak to you about research to translation. But it's not new. It's not a new phenomena that we are doing. If you see the first company globally that was set up, and that was Genentech, it was in 1976, and they came up with the first, they were actually using the recombinant E. coli bacteria to produce the first human protein. And this was way back in 1977. Later on, they produced insulin, which all of us know, the human hormone insulin. So it was research. This new research was quickly turned and converted into a product. And this then became the first global company. This was followed by Indian companies, which I will now tell you in our history of India. But this set the base for taking research from laboratory into products. So far, biotechnology was being used in households in different areas, but we were now looking at products which got commercialized. This company set up, it got an IPO, it got acquired by Roche, it's got a large number of employees, and it became a commercial product. So that is really where research went into translation. Coming to India, and that's where our journey began. It was actually on 26th of February 1986 when the government of India took a decision of setting up a separate department of biotechnology. It was earlier working within the Department of Science and Technology, and then in 82 it became a National Biotechnology Board, but then it became a new separate department, and that was the Gazette notification. From 86 to 21, what really has our journey been in all these years? It's moved from taking on discovery, helping to promote innovation, and creating enterprises. So the whole journey from research to translation in these years that we have set up, these over 35 years, the department has focused. It's a new department, it's a new area, but we have been able to cover the whole. And right from capacity building to doing human resource development to supporting research and development in basic, in applied and translational research, in promoting innovation and entrepreneurship, and most importantly, looking at what policies and regulations are which facilitate this research to translation. It's not easy to just take research to translation. You need to create a very, very enabling ecosystem. You need to have policies for it. And most importantly, you need to forge partnerships, strategic partnerships which help you to take it forward. So which was the first Indian company that we had, and that was, which today we all know, Biocon, and that's a picture of Dr. Kiran Majumdar-Shaw getting her first facility constructed way back in 1978, and the picture you see in below the screen is the recent picture of the R&D laboratory, and this is not just one laboratory, it's a full Biocon park. But what is interesting is today we've moved into having a large number of companies. We've looked at India, and I will in the next few slides, share with you where are we in biotechnology. From one company in 1978, our whole journey has really moved forward. But it was not just the industry, it was important to set up very strong research institutes. And the Department of Biotechnology was set up in '86, but the first biotechnology research institute, the National Institute of Immunology, which is now a premier institute of DBT, was actually established in '81. It worked as a laboratory of the All India Institute of Medical Sciences. Dr. G.P. Talwar was the, you see over here, was the founder director, and his work on Mycobacterium is really what brought out the leprosy vaccine. And that leprosy vaccine is not only used in our leprosy, but it is also used today. In fact, it was tried and tested for COVID as well. So this is really, and of course, this one institute of DBT has now bloomed, and we have 16 institutes of DBT, but that's really where the journey began. When you talk about entrepreneurship, when you talk about taking products forward, you need to look at biotech parks, and that's really what our next step in the ecosystem was. And the country's first women biotech park was set up in 1997. And this began its commercial operations in 2001. And today it has a full-fledged incubator. It has a large number of startups. It has women entrepreneurs who started commercial businesses. So I'm trying to show you how we've moved step by step, keeping with the ecosystem to try and see what we need to build in. But it was important that we have important policies that help us to take this ahead. And India's major emphasis on strategic growth has been through our S&T policies. And this has been through our scientific policy resolution that we had in '58, our technology policy statement in '83, the science technology policy in 2003, and of course the science technology and innovation policy in 2013. And many of you would have been part of the recent discussions, and we hope that very soon we should be having the new science technology innovation policy, which will come out. Biotechnology comes under this policy. It comes as a part of this, and the first strategy vision that we set out was in 2001. That is when the department began thinking of what is it that we need to do with biotechnology. And here you see our former Prime Minister releasing the vision document in 2010. And in this release function, and I was very fortunate to be the member secretary of this group with our former secretary, Dr. Manju Sharma, and this vision document was released in the Prime Minister's residence. And I do recall the Honorable Prime Minister, former Prime Minister Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji saying, this is today ITBT. What is ITBT? We kept talking about information technology and biotechnology moving hand in hand to move ahead. But he said, ITBT is India today is Bharat tomorrow. These were his words. And he had envisioned it then that this is really going to be a Bharat tomorrow, where India and Bharat is going to be recognized. And today we feel fortunate that India is on this global map. In 2007, we brought out our next strategy, and there we made it very clear. There was one very clear statement, and that was, how do we promote innovation? And the foundation of discovery and innovation was laid out in this strategy. And this strategy actually said, we now look at creating BIRAC. And then in 2015, we brought out the next strategy for 5 years. And our renewed mission in this strategy said, we launch a major well-directed mission, and this is going to establish India as a biomanufacturing hub. And as I said, I've been very fortunate to be part of all these strategies and visions in the member secretary, and the recent one of 2021, when it was launched, when I was the secretary of the department during the Global Bio India, now chalks out our plan for a new India of 150 billion bioeconomy. This is really where we are. This is what biotechnology has done in these nearly 3 to 4 decades to us. We've got our positions, we've got, in fact, this is also slightly outdated, in which you say 3,475 startup, but it's actually reached over 5,000. We have over 60 bio incubation centers. But what is important is, and for you to see, is how we are growing, how this growth trajectory of the biotech sector is growing. And most importantly, how does it contribute to all the various missions of the country, whether it's Ayushman Bharat, whether it's Poshan Abhiyan, Make in India, Startup India, the Jal Shakti, each one of them has biotechnology as a very important component. So how did we do this in all these years? What was this journey of 35 years for biotechnology? How did we address all these? So there were mega science missions that we looked at. And health, which of course is the COVID, which all of you all are very familiar with, is one of our major accomplishments, which has come into the forefront. But we've had major focus on agriculture, on biodiversity, on clean energy, clean environment, and each of these missions that we took on, very akin to your space missions, there was a target that we put for ourselves. We conducted the research to ensure that those targets get fulfilled. The first one that I would like to share with you is where the Department of Space has been so closely engaged with us. And many of you in this hall, and especially Samir Saran and others who've been part of this, and Dr. Padalia also mentioned that he's been with this project for so long. This is what we started, our biodiversity characterization program. And this biodiversity characterization program was the first one that we did. Now, somebody may ask, what is the biotechnology and biodiversity characterization? This was the basis for us to map our rich diversity. This was the basis for us to bring out the biodiversity of our hotspot regions, Eastern Himalayas, Western Himalayas, the Eastern Ghats, Western Ghats, Central India. And then once this was mapped, this became information that was available to the various groups for bioprospecting, to see what really are those products that you can bring out. And we had nearly about 10 different genes which were identified. One of the most important ones was in the Himalayan Institute for Biotechnology at Palampur. They've identified an SOD gene which was looking at potato synthesis and cold, that was from the cold region, and there were many others. So this was the mapping that we did. While we created a database for the country, the bioprospecting moved as products that we took forward. And this, of course, is your own thing, and this may be outdated, Samir, so you'll have to help me to update this slide at some point of time. This is the database that was created. So all the knowledge that we brought in was protected, and this database that we put in with the Department of Space today is one of our richest database. And this database is not just for within the country. We have the richest biodiversity, but this is information that is available to researchers globally. And believe me, whenever I've had discussions with overseas researchers, they've always found this information of great importance. And based on this, we then took on our action plan, which Dr. Desai just spoke about, for now taking it from the forest area to actually mapping the coral reefs and others, so that we don't have just the forest area map, but we have coral reef, because we know that there are a huge number of products that we can look at which are important. And those products is what we are looking at, whether it's from the medical viewpoint, the marine biotechnology, or looking at products which can help us to look at genes of significance that we can take ahead. We also set up one of the largest microbial biorepositories. And this again collected microbes from across the country, from different regions. And these, which were set up, of course, were set up as a global biorepository. But what did it help us to do? It helped us to create this whole mission program on prospecting drugs from microbes. And we identified a large number of lead molecules, many of them which have been taken forward, which are either anti-infectives, anti-cancer, anti-diabetic, anti-inflammatory. And each of them now, of course, I know that there were about 10 of them which were finally shortlisted, 5 of them received US patents, and now they've been moving forward for product development. Similarly, we are looking at the agriculture sector. And an agriculture sector, again, and your Punjab Agriculture University, which is the host for this program, was a partner in this. And this, again, we looked at doing a complete physical mapping and sample sequencing of the wheat chromosome. This was, again, a mission that we took on. Before this, we had done the rice genome. But this slide I brought in because it had the Punjab Agriculture University as the key partner in this. And with this, once the draft genome sequence was published, it has given us an opportunity to now look at different wheat varieties for breeding. We have different types of wheat which are being brought out by the universities. Our own DBT Institute at Mohali has brought an anthocyanin-rich wheat variety, which has been now called purple wheat and sometimes called black wheat. It's been grown over hectares of farmers' land. And they've got consumer acceptance now to make bakery products of it. So each research that we take on, it has a gestation period. It has a gestation period sometimes of 5 years, sometimes of 10 years, sometimes of 15 years. But it gives you products at the end, and we know what those missions are going to do to take us forward. Similarly, in the healthcare, we became partners to a very important mission, and that was the India Project on Oral Cancer. We have today the largest oral cancer sample repository, biosample repository, working at our Kalyani Institute, NIBMG, along with the Tata Memorial Center at Mumbai, where they are collecting samples of patients, they're doing the genome sequencing, and we're being able to bring out predictive markers. So with predictive markers, with the use of artificial intelligence, we can now correlate and have early diagnosis of oral cancer. And it's not just for oral cancer, we're doing it for head and neck cancer and for others as well. The whole omics revolution was driven with biotechnology. And each of these, what you see over here are the end products that I've listed, but for each of them, we have a mission. And I could spend a whole day then talking about each of them with each mission. But just to give you a flavor, that each of these gives us, whether it's precision medicine, whether it's crops and plants, whether it's livestock, whether it's industrial biotech, the technologies that we develop, those are tools. Those are tools and instruments and platforms on which we move forward and build products. Very similar to your space mission, where you build your platforms and your vehicles on which you then look at bringing in other activities, other satellites to see how you could look at programs. That's exactly a similar manner on which we create these platforms to help us to look at responses that we'll bring out from different areas as we move ahead. But by taking all these missions forward, it's now important that we look at cutting edge research, which then fuels these missions, because still we do not have a very good understanding of what research is. So while we focus on missions, we give a lot of focus also on supporting cutting edge research. And these are all the frontier areas of cutting edge research. And this keeps moving because biotechnology is a very, very dynamically moving field. So you keep having newer areas of technology which come in, and we saw that, and we are seeing it even now today when we are talking about COVID vaccines. So each of them gets special focus from us, any of these emerging technologies, and there is a constant group which is looking at only supporting these emerging technologies so that once these technologies, platforms are developed, they feed into our translational missions. So whether it is the systems biology, whether it's computational biology, whether it's the use of artificial intelligence, big data. And let me tell you this, these missions, these platforms that we pick up are actually, as I said, responsible for many other initiatives that we take on. If today we are doing a whole genome sequencing under COVID, we have the platforms under our big data analytics to help us to analyze the data that comes out of these genome sequencing. How can we so quickly identify an Omicron? How do you know that which of those 38 or 50 odd mutations which come into the spike of Omicron? It's because we've been able to build capacities within the country. We've got the first Indian Biological Data Center, which is in Faridabad, which gives us the strength. So then moved on our journey from taking discovery to translation. And as we did that, we also had to re-engineer and bring in certain redesigning to our institutions. When DBT set up its institutions, they were all basic research institutions. And DBT is one of the main agencies within the government which supports universities across the system. So biotechnology in the country had spread to universities, to colleges, to research institutes, DBT, CSIR, many others. But they were all more focused on basic research. It was then important to create these translational design centers. And that's what we started doing after we announced our strategy in 2007. And we created what we call the science clusters. And as I said, in 2007 strategy, there was also a very clear emphasis by the government in which they said that we will work on public-private partnership. And this public-private partnership will be done through a separate vehicle that we set up, and that is BIRAC, which will be set up to promote startups, to promote innovation, to promote translation of products. So what really is BIRAC? BIRAC was set up as a fully owned company of the government, a public sector, and that was in 2012. And since 2012 to now, it's going to have its 10th foundation day in March next year. It has focused on complete support from research, idea to product development. You see the full translational value chain here. You take an idea, you take it through a proof of concept, take it through early stage development, late stage development, take it to product development. Of course, the acronyms you see below the arrow are all different schemes under which they are supported. But what is important for you to see is that we have support that we provide to students, researchers, entrepreneurs, startups. But more importantly, in addition to the resources, in addition to the finances, there's a lot of mentorship that gets provided. And that really helps take the research through the translation. So if you have to move research to innovation to commercialization, how do you create this enabling ecosystem? What are the key boxes that you have to really focus on? One is financing high-risk innovation. So there's a lot of special effort that has to be made to see, because there is not only technology that needs to move out, but you have to get the right people to be able to take it through that validation phase that I just showed you. These are high-risk innovations, and biotechnology is clearly, in most cases, low volume and high risk. So we have to try and see how we can bring out these high-risk products and finance them. Once the startups, the researchers come in, they need access to risk capital because it is capital intensive. You need to set up large equipments, expensive equipments, infrastructure. But again, you need to connect a lot of stakeholders because biotechnology, like the Space Department, provides tools and technologies across different sectors, whether it's agriculture, whether it's healthcare, whether it's petroleum, whether you're looking at biofuels or you're looking at climate change. So biotechnology provides the tools, the technologies, the products, but the end users are these various agencies. So it's important that you connect with these stakeholders, and who better than the space scientist will know how important it is to connect to stakeholders. The difference here is in the biotechnology products, the government is not just the market for these products. There is a commercial market. There's a national market. There's a global market. So you need to provide that access to market. And this is really what we've done through our translational ecosystem. So how do you enable them? How do you connect them? There is a very clear role that each one of them has. You need to connect the academia, which looks at discovery, POC, to bringing startups who connect the research from laboratories to large-scale production or the industry. And these startups are the ones who actually take this high risk. They do the early, late-stage validation. Once the validation is done and the marketing is to be done, that's when large industries come in. And you have seen large industries deliver at this point of time with the vaccines. But let me tell you, there have been a lot of startups who've been associated, and I will share some slides with you on that as we move ahead. This is a snapshot of what the BIRAC ecosystem has done within the country. And you can see these are the incubators that we've set up, the regional centers. There are more dots and more bubbles now across the country because we have over 60 incubators. But what is important is that over 5,000 startups have been supported. We have been able to get nearly 300 products. And this is really what the growth trajectory looks like. But there have been investments. Because the government came forward and took that risk, that high risk investment that we spoke about, we have investors who've come forward now. We also have venture funds who've started investing in biotechnology. It is, of course, very pleasing to see that the space department has now opened up and you have space in, in the public, in the private sector, and you've now started encouraging startups to come forward. And we are very confident that the biotechnology sector, which already has the startups, is also going to give us products as it has done for COVID for other areas as well. The last 5 years, if you see the trend, it's been, and this, of course, is despite the fact that we had the COVID in 2020, you've seen that there has been a growth. It hasn't really come down. And 2021 is again, when we close this year, we will see that the growth is only moving ahead because biotechnology has been the focus. This gives us a lot of confidence, and this is what you see in the 10 years. This biotech startup ecosystem has grown. You can see the figures clearly, and you can see how things are moving. So this is now our journey, and we're moving into the translational ecosystem, which we've set up. But beyond this is no longer going to be an incremental growth. What we are looking beyond this is an exponential growth, because that really is required if you have to take out the products at the way which the demand is coming, and the confidence that COVID products gave us has really proven this. So this is really what our incubators have done. These are the large number of startups which have been supported, and we see how they are moving ahead. We do a lot of these shared infrastructure facilities that get supported and created. And this is a snapshot of these infrastructure facilities which have been supported across the country. And as you see, each one of them is now moving ahead, and you have different venture funds which are coming forward to support these particular activities. These I will only skip through many of these slides. I wanted to share real life examples with you. An artificial human liver tissue. Who would think that two young boys from Indian Institute of Science would in 2012 come forward and say that they would like to take up a cell and regenerative therapy startup they would want to start. They were graduates from ISC. They got our first big grant, and 2017 is when they got the first large investment from Flipkart. And very recently in 2021, Mahindra's group has now invested in them, and their human liver tissue is now going in ahead for the for looking at trying to see how we could have not just clinical trials, but taking it forward. Similarly, we have many other young startups who are getting into many different success stories, and I'll just, all young students, IIT graduates, some of them just coming out of engineering colleges, and they've taken on their whole young scientists who have turned into entrepreneurs, all of them with success stories that they have. And all these are products which are coming into the market. We've had some leaders from the corporate world who actually left their corporate life and said, okay, they want to set up and create products. But most importantly, we have certain social entrepreneurs, because there are a large number of social products. So when you look at research to translation, it's not just looking at commercial products. You're looking at products which have social value as well. How are we doing this? What really is it that we are setting up? So we've created these knowledge translational clusters, which have academia, industry, Urjit clusters as we call them. And we are also working with technology scale-up clusters. The technology scale-up clusters allow that you can actually take an incubation center through the technology cluster to be able to create what we call a Make in India product. So this is how products move from research to incubation to commercial markets. And that is the whole journey through our various facilities, whether we've given them fab labs or we've given them prototyping facilities, helped them with regulatory ecosystem, created test beds for them. This is how we moved. And one sector that we set this up in 2017, in fact 18, it was April 18 that this got operationalized, was the National Biopharma Mission. And the reason I put this slide before you is this is the foundation which has brought before you the various products that we look at for COVID, whether it is vaccines, whether it is the biotherapeutics, whether it's the medical devices. But what is important is for each of the phases from discovery to preclinical development to process manufacturing to clinical trials, we've been able to create the ecosystem. And this ecosystem is now ready with us in our country, not just for COVID, but beyond COVID. And the year 2021 was clearly a year of the pandemic. It's also a year of science and technology. We were very proud when we had the tableau on COVID vaccines on Rajpath, which signified the importance of this and they signified that how the virus has been converted and taken into a vaccine. So in this COVID times, we had a very focused, and this was a whole government approach. DBT, yes, of course, thank you very much for acknowledging DBT. But DBT worked with all its various agencies, and it was a science-based response strategy that was put forward, whether it was medical devices, whether it's vaccines, therapeutics. And as I said, we have today an ecosystem that provides for all these. Most importantly, the government recognized the importance of COVID and the need to have a mission. And that's when Mission COVID Suraksha got announced under the Atmanirbhar Bharat package in November 2020. Just 1 year before, and in this 1 year, our focus was to see how can we get vaccines delivered for our own population. We supported and we have in a very short period of time 2 vaccines that you have seen, which are today over 135 crore vaccination has happened. We have a basket of vaccines. We have a DNA vaccine. We have the mRNA vaccine. But each stage of this vaccine development has been supported. We've got clinical trial sites. We've got globally recognized clinical trial sites. And this is what our vaccine portfolio looks like. 4 vaccines which have received the emergency use authorization, Covishield, Covaxin, both developed in India, Sputnik developed as an India-Russia partnership, and of course the DNA vaccine, which is an indigenous made vaccine, the first in the world. Now, this slide relates to what I showed you right in the beginning of creating a very strong translational base for ourselves. Had we not created such a strong human resource, such a strong ecosystem, we may not have been in a position to work with our industries to be able to give this vaccine to the country at the speed at which we've done. Moving ahead, now we are looking at all these platforms. The mRNA vaccine is coming out shortly. Our protein subunit vaccine is ready. The intranasal vaccine of Bharat Biotech, they've all completed. They're all reaching actually phase 3 trials. So each one of them is ready to move forward. And we are now looking at new platforms which help tackle all the variants that come forward. This is the network that has been created across the country. The network where you have all the clinical trials happening for these vaccines that you see rolling out. So while you hear on the television that you are vaccines have reached phase 1, they've reached phase 2, they've reached phase 3, these are the people behind those clinical trials which actually help these vaccines to move forward. A very, very strong ecosystem was built for it. So while vaccines, you all know the wonderful story that we've done, and we hope that we will be able to move forward and produce more and more vaccines, not just for India, but for the world. We did very well in our diagnostics. In 60 days, India became fully self-reliant on its diagnostics. We started on 26th of March, 2020, the first indigenous RT-PCR kit got clearance by ICMR and the DCGI. By April end and then May end, we had more than 100 such kits which were developed. And we had a capacity of testing nearly 10 lakh RT-PCR tests per day. This COVID brought to us a very unique situation. We suddenly realized that while we did indigenous product development, there were supply chain disruptions. None of the raw materials were coming, and we were dependent totally on outside for raw materials. That's when we built our own indigenous raw material capacity. Today, we have all the raw material, whether it's the enzymes, whether it's the Taq polymerase, any of them, they all get developed within the country, and we have all our kits ready, not just for the country, but also for export. At the Visakhapatnam AMTZ, we created a command center, a common center for manufacturing. And this is what it is currently doing. We also set up an iLab, which is now in different parts of the country, in remote areas. These are the made in India commercial kits. Of course, you wouldn't know. You go and get your RT-PCR test done. But behind that, these are the kits which are actually helping these RT-PCR tests to be done. RT-PCR, antibody tests, all of them have been developed. In addition to this, our startups, and you saw the robust ecosystem that we created for startups. This is what they have been able to contribute during COVID times. Whether it's the PPEs, whether it's the ventilators, whether it's the masks, whether it's your sanitizers, whether it's remote patient monitoring devices. We have a startup who's actually been able to install in over 1,000 hospitals patient monitoring devices, where you have a device which monitors 100 patients at one point of time through artificial intelligence at the ICU. We have vaccine cold storage boxes which are actually carrying these vaccines which are to the remote areas, all through different technologies which they've been able to bring in through the startup ecosystem that we've created. So these are really many of the products which I just wanted to share pictures with you. And I'll conclude now. And in my conclusion, what I would like to say is, it is not just India and not just COVID that brought India and the biotechnology to the spotlight. In 2018, that is before we had the COVID, Nature, and you all know that Nature is one of our major international journal which brings out specific reviews, had brought out how the Indian biotech is driving innovation. This was the spotlight article in 2018. So it was globally recognized in 2018 that India is already there. We've already made a mark in our innovation ecosystem, and that's what helped us to deliver the products that you saw at COVID times. So moving forward, our strategy of 2025 says that we will be a $150 billion industry by 2025. These are the exponential growth numbers that we've projected for ourselves. From research to translation, we have the ecosystem, we have the human resource, we have the will to do it. I think now what we need to do is to come together in a collaborative manner. And that's really what our Honorable Prime Minister said, that we have the capacities to do it. India has this rich legacy. Scientists have been doing, these large number of discoveries. Industry is at the forefront of solving global problems, but India wants to do more. That is the target, that is the message with which all our scientists, all our industry is moving ahead. And my last slide is again a message from our favorite Dr. Abdul Kalam, who has given that, because I know that in this audience today, you would have a lot of young researchers and scientists. And the message that he has given is what I reiterate to you, is have the courage to think differently, courage to invent, to travel the unexplored path, courage to discover the impossible and to conquer the problems and succeed. If we would not have this courage, believe me, we would never have gone onto the path of committing in February 2020, 6th of February 2020, the first WHO meeting on COVID pandemic. India was the country which put out its R&D blueprint. I still recall chairing a meeting on 27th of January, preparing this blueprint map and saying India will deliver vaccines for its population. India will deliver its own indigenous diagnostics, we will set up our pan-India genome sequencing network. And we did it within a short period. And today, as you all see, whether it is identifying the virus, whether it is identifying the Omicron, whether it is vaccinating our population, we have the wherewithal for it. So thank you very much. And thank you for giving me an opportunity to discuss this with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am, for taking us through exciting journey of biotechnology in India. Now, I request Dr. Nilesh Desai, sir, President ISRS, for concluding remarks.
Good evening. As I had said in my opening remarks, it has been really remarkable to learn about the total journey of our biotechnology era in India since its inception in 1986. I understand when in a big way these activities started, and as Madam really brought out all the nuances of the activities carried out all these 35 years. And in fact, this is coinciding with my tenure in ISRO, because I joined ISRO in 86. So I felt as if my growth in ISRO is almost equivalent to the way Department of Biotechnology has grown even much higher in stature as well as the activities which has been there. And for that, various leaders in Department of Biotechnology with our principal scientific advisor, Dr. Vijay Raghavan sir, and Dr. Renu Sarup madam has been the torchbearers of this what we call exhilarating journey from research to its translation to real action on ground. So thank you, madam, for a very, very illuminating lecture on various aspects. And especially, as I mentioned, in this pandemic era, biotechnology and its associated research will go a long way in taking India and to further heights. And of course, this, as you mentioned in your lecture also, and all of us are well aware, under the Honorable Prime Minister's Science and Technology and Innovation Council related initiatives, the 9 major missions have been identified. And what you mentioned about the National Biodiversity Mission as well as Bioscience for Health, these two being the major activities. And apart from that, other activities like quantum frontiers as well as artificial intelligence related thing on which ISRO has been working since last many years. So all this put together will take India further in its journey towards becoming a giant as far as science and technology activities and leadership in that era is concerned. So once again, I thank Madam for a very illuminating talk, and it has been something different from what all we have been used to hear as a part of our Indian Society of Remote Sensing various activities. And it has been really a very good choice for us for this year's Vikram Sarabhai Memorial Lecture, and a true tribute to Dr. Sarabhai as well, who, when we said that India, we should apply technology for the benefit of common man as well as society. And for this mission, of course, space has been working in that direction, and our biotechnology department and other leaders has also been working in this direction. So thank you, madam, once again for your nice talk. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Now I request Dr. Samir Saran sir, so for felicitation and technical team from Punjab Remote Sensing Center.
First, I think on behalf of President ISRS and entire ISRS and ISD fraternity, I would like to profusely thank you, madam, for accepting our invitation. Your deliberation has enlightened us to know not only insights on biotechnology of India, but also entire biotechnology journey from research to discovery and further discovery to translation. So we are once again indebted to you, madam, and look forward to your guidance in our future endeavors. Now, with the help of organizers, we would like to felicitate you virtually, although we wish to have you physically, but due to... Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Thank you all very much for this, and it was a pleasure to be with all of you all. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Now, thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Now it's time to conclude that I'm happy to announce that the day 2 of National Symposium concludes here with wonderful learnings and memories. We are excited for day 3. Now I extend my sincere thanks to each and everyone for your presence. Thank you.
And one announcement, those who are here, members of ISRS, please join for the AGM meeting at 7 o'clock. हेलो हेलो कहाँ से